Welcome to another exciting episode of Peace Society. I'd love to welcome back the one, the only, Dr. Tim Blake. Dr. Tim, thanks so much for coming back, man. It's great seeing you again. How you doing?
It's a pleasure, Pete. Glad to be back.
So what have you been up to since the last time we talked? Anything exciting?
Anything exciting, living life. All of what goes on between what happened, it was a while ago. So slowly working on building business, but not fully up there. But have got a online radio bit with Faith Points Radio at ufpr.online/ Wednesdays and Thursdays at 1 Eastern and Sundays at 9, where the episode plays.
That's awesome, though. That's pretty cool, though. I mean, what else have you been up to besides that? I mean, you said, are you starting your own business? Are you going on your own basically?
Well, starting your own business in terms of your coaching, lifemindset.life.
Okay.
I don't think I'd yet come to the crafting the life mindset concept until sometime after that whole our first conversation. So I think that came well after that.
Yeah, that's cool though. And like I told you, I've been doing a lot of interviews since the last time we see each other, like 200 plus, just 200. It's so interesting though.
Just a drop in the bucket,
right? I remember the last time we met though. We were talking. You had pinpointed right away that I was abandoned when I was 10 because you're like, hey, have you ever been abandoned? I thought that was the craziest thing ever. But now meeting some of these people, I'm not really shocked about a lot of things I've been learning as I go. Like I figured out, I've been studying a lot of energy healing and things like that too. Found I'm sensitive to energy and all that kind of stuff and those different principles of that kind of stuff. And, like I've had a lot of interesting conversations since then. I found out that now I have PTSD, which I didn't realize it until, I started having issues, which it was interesting because it came about because me and my ex are going through a divorce currently. And like I got a phone call from her and it just messed me up the last few days. And it was just like I couldn't figure out what it was. It was just the sound of her voice, and it's like when you get in that moment, it's just like I didn't think anything of it when it happened. She called me, I talked to her. And then after that, it just like rattled me. Like I didn't realize what was wrong. And I was like, this is just weird because like I've never had this problem. But ever since I've gotten out of where I was to where I'm now, it's like it's like whatever the sound of her voice just affected me that bad. It was just tripping me out because I was like, this is weird, And then when I went to therapy to talk to my therapist, I was talking to her about it, and she was like, yeah, And then that's when we discovered that could be what it was. Because a friend and I were discussing that. She's like, well, maybe that's what it is because it was a bad relationship, really, honestly. Like I've been telling a lot of people about it lately, what's been going on. But I told her I basically had suicidal thoughts. I told her about it. She told me that to make her the 13th reason why. It's basically how this whole thing just went completely like clusterfuck of a mess just went down. And it was like, it was just like, wow, like you went to tell me that. But then after I really look at it, like she has all the signs of a narcissist, like by far, like it was that bad. And like, for a guy that does a podcast about mental health and we talk about this stuff a lot of times, like I was so blind because I thought, what was love, it really wasn't love. It's just, it was a mess. It's been a mess.
Yeah, so we get into messes in our lives, and it's not uncommon for significant trauma to be buried so that you're not aware. Certainly, my mother had that. When I was a kid, she had, what they call the manic episode. She was hospitalized. Yeah. They put her on lithium. She was always emotionally volatile. After her mother died, that's when she started having the flashbacks of her significant complex trauma. And actually came after a psychiatrist and told her, hey, have you ever been sexually molested? She said, no. And then the memories opened up and that became aware of what really was going on with her.
Is it only because of the trauma when her mom passed? Is that you think that's why it unlocked those? Is that why really a lot of reason why it unlocks?
Her grandmother, my grandmother, her mom died, and so that may have been one piece of it.
Yeah.
That may have held her together and helped keep the memories at bay, because the one who abused her was her oldest brother, who was also schizophrenic. He died before I was ever born in a car accident, what have you, but pretty severe trauma that came as a result of what he did to my mom over her years growing up.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense then. So what other kind of interesting things have you been up to? I mean, I see your Facebook posts all the time with different things you're posting. I mean, you're actively you're up to nothing.
Right. So yeah, Facebook books, and I had the lovely privilege of having my Facebook shut down for a month plus.
What did you do to get shut down?
Well, I didn't do anything. I was sitting here with the family at home, looking at Facebook, and sending Christmas messages going to on a messenger. Suddenly it cut me off. It turned out that and this can happen, so be careful, everybody. This can happen on Facebook, that some random IM scammer attaches to your account and starts spamming. And so Facebook says, oh, you're the guilty party. It shuts you down, and you got to go through rigmarole. You gotta pay for Meta Verified on the Instagram. You gotta argue with them and argue with them and argue with them and argue with them, and eventually, they turn me back on, and that's usually what I found on the Reddit Facebook disabled site. Just gotta do that. Don't pay for scammers that say they'll revive your account. They'll just suck your money.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had my Instagram shut down one time. I don't remember what it was. One of my personal ones. It was just like some comment I made, and I don't even think about, I didn't think about what the comment even was. It was just all of a sudden shut it down. I lost access for a while. So I started the new one when I started the podcast. And I've been spending most of my time on that one too, doing a lot of posting and things like that too. And I always get these invites from people who are always like, "Hey, I'll promote your podcast for you." I'm like, "Oh, that's okay. I'm great. Listen, I'm heard in a lot more countries than most people are heard on the internet. I've got more people that mention my name, so I'm like, what more can you do for me that I have to pay you for? I don't have to pay for this publicity. People talk about everything I'm doing all the time, And we've had some crazy moments since the last time we saw each other. We had a guy on here that came on, and he was talking about his suicidal ideation, okay? So how the conversation went, he was talking about it, and he just kind of led into it. And he goes, hey, listen, I got to tell you something. And he was telling me about it, and he's like, yeah, I was sitting here at the edge of the edge of the bed, and I was like, oh, here we go, like it was just one of those moments where it's like, oh, shit. People were freaking out, though, and it's like, I think people, I don't understand why they freak out about it. It's like, dude, these are real conversations people are having. I found it being easier, though, since we interviewed, though, a lot of different things, a lot of people I've met, all these different areas and all these conversations we had, it gets easier to talk about a lot of these things. Like, that was an oh shit moment, because I wasn't prepared for that. But, I should have been prepared, because this is something in the area we'll get into, that kind of stuff and other things that people talk about, and these people come telling me some pretty wild stories since the last time we saw each other. I think the craziest one to date, though, was the girl that told us that the Homeland Security was kicking in her door looking for her.
Well, that would be someone that's a little, living in their own world, to put it nicely. So yeah, anything, you never know what you're going to get out there, especially if you're interviewing folks cold within the broad. But at least that will make it interesting. People, I got to tune to Pete, see what they're going to come up with, who's going to show up next. If you've had
I learned that though as I went. I was
less than sound, more dramatic kind of interviews, one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So, any plans for a podcast for yourself?
Yeah, plans are in the works in terms of what I'm looking for. The first thing I've got to get, and I'm almost there, everything functional with my website and memberships and offers. I'm nearly there, got some stuff to do. I've fortunately been blessed with a consulting bit that pays for the basic expenses for my business around. Next year, 2026, is the big push to get stuff at least beginning to move. Are going to march forward. So, got some stuff there. I've got to fix my membership areas on the website before I go that. My website, by the way, is lifemindset.life. See, what I've crafted since we last talked and what I've developed is the understanding construct of life mindset. And of course, a lot of it coming out of Christian thought, but not just solely that. It's all about living life well, taking all the aspects of positive psychology and topping it. I formatted that as I was working on my speaking skills. I had joined a group to hone my speaking and put together a keynote speaking, and that kind of pretty much encapsulated all of what I'm about. And I was going to do about growth mindset because my doctoral dissertation's on that, or positive psychology. I go, no, let's just look at mindsets, look at what's out there. And I did a search on life mindset. There's got to be somebody that's doing something with that. I just want to see it because I know there's benefit mindset, there's growth mindset, there's all these. No, nobody has done anything with life and mindset together. And I go, oh, okay, then this is for me.
Yeah, see, that's how I looked at mine. I just looked at mine. I was like, there was the people just having conversations. Like, you see doctor this, doctor that, but I'm just the average Joe here asking questions, raising the question of why we're not talking about these things more often. And then I came across you, and we had a great time. And then there was a bunch of other people before that. I had, like, the Columbine survivor that came on. That was an interesting conversation. And then later, fast forward now, 200 plus interviews later, man, I've met so many different interesting people. I've made so many new friends. Trust me, you're gonna love doing this. It's great because you'll start meeting new people in the same area that you're in. Like doing podcasting in general, it's just gonna be great because all the people you'll meet.
Right. And we'll see how it evolves, because my plan is to roll that out about March, and then do a summit on joy in April. That's my tentative plan right now. With and not being just all interviews like you, because I plan to do probably one interview a month with somebody related to that, hear their story, do a teaching, do a community skill walkthrough kind of one, and then just one that connects to culture is my current plan for 4 different types of episodes, one each a month currently.
That's pretty cool.
Because I got a lot of time, and again, that online radio, which won't be the same material as my podcast, and certainly we'll have a way for anybody that doesn't go to the radio and wants to get all the episodes. I will have a way people can get that for a cheap monthly fee, just because it's a lot of stuff put in on that end. So it's a resource to have. There are things that are coming, but again, all centered around life mindset. And just to give you a clue in what I'm talking about with life mindset, it's about living life for the full with the both giving and receiving, not the take mindset that's around the world altogether. And with that, you got 4 main moves. You receive what you've been given to you. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You take what you've been given. Then what you receive, next step in the process, you refine. You sort through what is of value, you sort through what's not of value, you kind of process. You're refining that. Once you refine, then you move into a place where you release. You build up the good, you emphasize the good, and you turn that into something productive. And the things that are harmful or bad, you want to release, you want to let go, you want to forgive, you want to move it aside so it's not actively part of you. And then when you're doing that, then you can move into the step where you're beginning to get the fruits of the good things that you put out into the world. So it's about you, it's about others, it's about living life to a full, having a mindset about generating life, not taking and trying to be on top.
So what's the name of your podcast going to be?
Well, just the same as the radio show. It's all going to be Living Life Mindset. So the radio show is Living Life Mindset. Got to stay with the brands. The podcast will be Living Life Mindset.
Yeah.
When I get books out there, the book on this may well be Living Life Mindset in terms of the Life Mindset book. I've got to work on those. We live in a day and age, I can have assistants to get me doing that stuff quicker. Not writing it all, mind you, because it's my ideas, not some AI's ideas, but I can generate things much quicker with editing and structure and rewriting than if I just did it on my own.
That's very true, yeah. A lot of programs these days, you'll find a lot of that stuff makes it easier, especially when doing your advertise for the podcast and things like that too. I had to learn a lot since the first time we met. I've had so many different technicians. I have all this different stuff. I have the arm. I have all the equipment. I got a laptop donated to me for part of the podcast too as well, and a bunch of other things and stuff like that. I have a new setup over here now. I actually have 2 monitors, which you can't see off on the other side of the screen. I have another monitor here. So I picked it up. I changed what location. We were using StreamYard. Now we moved to Riverside, which I like a lot better for the editing features and the clips I can make, and the fact I can use it mobilely too. So if I'm on the go, I have that paired with Adobe Express. I can actually plan to drop certain, give previews of the episodes, because I'm doing 3 drops a week. And they're just strictly just interviews. I have that many interviews I've been doing. I think tomorrow I have like 5 or 6 I do. But I enjoy it all though. It's not like work to me. It's it's great because all these different people I invite to come talk to me. People share their stories. It's so interesting when you get into the thing. With mental health. I met somebody the other day actually. She's doing great things with hypnotherapy. She's using AI to make these clips for people in 5 minutes of things that can just be a positive reinforcement for them and things like that too, and I've got invited to a couple panels. I've done a lot since the last time we've seen each other. I got to do a Holocaust survivor panel.
That's how it begins. You begin sowing seeds and putting things out there, and then continuing to generate. And right now, my plans are, okay, this is what I want to do, and watch, and I'll do it, and I go, okay, well, that's not attended to, that's attended to, that's not, well, let's just stick with the thing that gets attention. Yeah.
Right.
Not only those on that end, but these are ideas to move. And anyone out there listening, you got something. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to jump on right away, and I'm going to be. Everything takes time. You start with the small. I refer to it as the speed of a seed. You do the work to get to where you got to go. So I've been progressing in terms of building things up, in terms of doing beginning to do podcasts and working on speaking, we're going on, 26 will be really fully year 4. So, it's just year 3 where I got a contract consulting that pays for everything, and I'm pretty much breaking even now, and so I can expand and get what I need to do to move forward and get everything working that I don't have time to do all myself. And so find a little somebody that can help me with the website bit, and then still got to do my pieces, but it gets it possible.
Yeah, see, I did mine reverse order. I didn't have a website right away. I kind of built up to that. I have a website now. I have a school community now. I am working on some merchandise stuff. I got a couple of interesting ideas I'm working on that are in the back works right now. Things like that too, and I've been doing a lot more guest spots where I go on other shows and talk about what I'm doing. I've actually gotten better at sharing my story too. I've been talking about it a lot more, and it feels a lot better as I progressively go through it. And this past year, I've been kind of reflecting on a lot of the things in the past and not blaming everybody for things that I had my own part of,
Right.
and things like that. And the thing with my mom, it's like I'm kind of had a new perspective I want to talk to you about a little bit actually. Sure. So my new thought process is yes, she caused this trauma, but at the same time, I want to thank her, because if I didn't go through this, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't have these such great engaging conversations. Instead of sitting there trying to blame everybody in the world, I'm turning it into, just like you did, turning it into a positive mindset. I'm taking the good out of it. The good is that I'm doing this show now. I'm opening this space for people to come here. And like we talked about in our first interview, you had noted, you said, hey, do you ever make people feel like everybody wants to feel like they're all welcome? And I still talk to people about that today. I said, I met a guy named Tim, man. He talked to me. Dr. Tim told me, he goes, hey, listen, do you make sure everybody feels? And like the way you broke it down just made me laugh. Sorry, because I was like, damn, Dr. Tim, you're just in my mind now, man. But it was,
that's the sort of thing I want to do, and certainly one of my offers with my group is to have a short period of identity kind of processing where you get a better understanding of yourself.
Yeah.
That's one of the offers that will exist out there, and certainly open up to everything else I do. But that's a piece that's certainly being offered. And again, accessible. I haven't put all the funnels up fully yet, but it's certainly something that will be there. On that kind of thing. That kind of conversation is what I'm looking to do. It's something I do well. And I'm glad that you benefit. I'm glad I had that impact on you, and to hear that you're moving forward in terms of recognizing parts of who you are, recognizing the good and some of the pain, because the pain is part of it.
Yeah. I agree.
Pain is part of it, and then being able to process for benefit for life, because more often than not, what we do, we take, we grab, we collect, we get what we can for anybody else at the expense of them. I got to get me my mine. I got to load myself up with all that. I can, because nobody else is going to get me anything. But here's the thing: when you taste and you start getting things distorted, then you get things destructed, and then you end up in a period of waste. So it spirals into negativity that you can't really get out of. We get in those automatic negative patterns that just continue, and be it victim mindset, be it addiction, be it depression, be it whatever it may be it narcissism, where you're taking everything from everybody just to elevate you, whatever it may be. There's all those prospects versus living full and sorting out, refining, processing, as you just mentioned there, to find what's the value here, what can I do with what I've lived and what's gone on in my life. And then in turn,
I've done a lot of reflecting, honestly, and things have changed a lot. If I look at where I was the last time we met, it's way different. My kids and I have actually a talking relationship, which is better than we were.
Awesome.
None. I'm in a better place. I've actually lost a lot of weight too, because I've been taking better care of myself. So I'm actually happy to report I'm under 300 pounds for the first time in 15 years. I've never been this. So, I'm making all the positive strides to go the right way. And like I said, the show has just been taking off. Like, I'm booked out to March with people. You've already seen it, but I'm off to like March at least with people. I got another side project I'm actually working on now. It's called Voice of the Voiceless. It's one I'm doing in correlation with somebody else. She runs a support group too, and she was actually a guest on the show. Me and her were talking about it. So the idea is we're inviting people to come share their stories. It's strictly audio though. That way people can come share it and they don't have to be known. And then when they can feel like their story's being heard, but then they don't have to be seen. Because I know when you do a podcast, a lot of people are like, their first initiative thing is like, well, I don't want people to know it's my story. Okay, cool. Well, we're solving that problem right there. You can share that story and still be heard and connect with somebody on some level, because somebody's going to hear that and realize, okay, well, some of this matches up with me, and things like that too. So me and my co-host Maddie, were talking about this. And I was like, you know what? I always want to do a side project. It's not like I don't have enough things going on. I got to man generate to the point of, too many things I got to try and do. So, but I have other ideas coming down the list of other podcast ideas I'm doing too. I've met a bunch of people on the way to do addiction and things like that. So I've learned a lot of stuff from these other people that are in my life that have influenced these things. So I take away everything from every conversation with people, try and learn something new, and all that kind of stuff. Because why not? I've got people with such recognition like you and everybody else have been on this show that I could take and learn something from them and take it and give it to somebody else. And, I always try and teach somebody something new if I can. Anything I've got, I always share it with them. Hey, listen, I'm always referencing different things. And yours and I conversation, I reference a lot to people because they laugh. I'm like, it's very possible, man. When you're talking to people, you never know. They can identify things pretty quick. And I would mention that to people. They start laughing. I'm like, it was kind of weird, but it was at the same time, it was just like, damn, that's impressive. You're like, yeah, this is what I do. The way you did it, too, you're just like, yeah, ain't nothing. Don't worry about it. It was great, though. Well, I'm so happy to hear you're going to do a podcast and all that great stuff. You're doing the radio ad and all that fun stuff, man. That's so cool to hear. Like, that's great, because that way I can share it out to other people. Like, hey, listen, you go check out his podcast. Check it out, Because I think we all need to start looking at the positives of things and stop looking at the negatives. I think too many people just wallow in that. And I was one of those people at one point, so I could tell you that I can speak from experience, And I feel like a lot of times when you talk to people, that's what it comes to. It's like, well, what do you know? And then you start listing everything for them, and they're like, well, never mind, you already know. And I feel like that's the easy way to connect with people too. But and all that kind of stuff too. But it's been great. Like I said, I got invited to another panel again. I'm doing this time. Maybe I won't be the least experienced person. I was there with some big wigs, man. I had a lady with a Golden Globe that was introducing me. It was the craziest thing ever. You're just watching it sit there, and there's another one in the back, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, I'm in a pretty high level area now. Okay. So it's been kind of cool. Then, I had met the Holocaust survivor. He was telling us his story and things like that too. I've had a lot of my own interesting stories along the way of different people I've met and these things that they're telling you. And it doesn't seem to surprise me at all. But it seems like it's getting more interesting because you start raising the question, people say we're talking about mental health stuff, but we're not. Think about the guy with the Dallas Cowboys. I haven't heard anything after that point of, okay, well, this unfortunate young man took his life. All you heard his girlfriend say was that he struggled. And my next instant question is, okay, so what were you doing to help him? Am I wrong for asking that?
Right. No, there's a question what you do to help him, but here's what happens often, is especially men, and certainly high-performing men, like athletes. You got these things going on. You don't want to be vulnerable. You ain't sharing nothing with nobody, no how. So girlfriend, you may see depressed, he doesn't want to get out of bed, you see him to drink more, you got these things, I tell him to stop it, I go get them, whatever, he tells me to, F off.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and particularly, no, I'm good. And see, one of my paying jobs right now, and I think I mentioned this last time, is working with chemically addicted homeless men. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so they always minimize their difficulties. Yeah, they minimize either addiction, they minimize any kind of struggles with any kind of emotions or whatever, keep it locked down. The starting point, you got to be able to recognize. You got to be able to see and see that, okay, am I having some hurts and injuries and pains that impact me? Either how I've lived life or some biochemical things that are impacting me. That we got the stigma. I'm not crazy. I can't be crazy. I'm just a normal person. Hey, or as an athlete, I'm just an athlete. I'm fine, I'm good, I'm supposed to be the top of the heap right now. And then, they're not living life, they're not embracing life, they've gotten to where they're getting what they can, and then everything bottoms out, and then they can crash to the point of death.
Yeah.
That can happen.
It was unfortunate, though.
Yeah. Well, even the Michigan coach is crazy and unfortunate. I was actually hate to hear the word crazy. A gentleman at Michigan, coach goes and has an affair with somebody under him, and then kills her and kills himself. That's just where it is. And today we got who knows what was going on, but perhaps Rob Reiner's son murdered him and his wife.
Yeah, that thing too was crazy. That was pretty wild too. I was going to say that was really interesting to hear. Somebody told me about this morning. I was doing something and they had mentioned to me, and I was like, "What?" I've been so disconnected from the news. I didn't even see that come across my feed. I was like, "Whoa, that was pretty crazy to hear too." You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, it's a screaming issue that we need to talk more about these things and figure out what is going on with people that this is happening. You know what I mean? Like, people are suffering, and like you said, they're scared to say something because people think that they're crazy or things like that. And that's why I went on my Instagram, the feeds thing. I was on there. I tagged the Dallas Cowboys and I said, hey, so what are you doing about this now? What kind of conversations are we doing from the loss of this gentleman to now? What are we doing? And I actually have a meeting with somebody from the Jacksonville Jaguars Friday that we're going to talk about her story a little bit. We're doing a pre-meeting. We're not having an interview yet, but we're doing a pre-meeting. She works as one of their lawyers for the team, and I was like, I asked her, I said, listen, you know anybody else in the organization that might be interested to get some sound on this thing? Like, what the heck, man? Like, what are we doing at this point for these guys? Because these athletes are like larger than life to everybody, but it's like at the end of the day, they're still humans. It's like, we put them on a pedestal, we blow them, and like, that's great and all, but like, these guys struggle in the back scene, and a lot of people don't even know. So what are we doing? Like, with this young man's unfortunate death, we should be doing something about this now. This should be something we should be looking into to see what we can better do for these guys. Like Junior Seau was the other case of the things, where he went, and unfortunately went kind of crazy too a little bit, preferably. Well, what I'm saying? Like, it's like, these problems start existing, but then it's like, what are we doing about them? It's like, oh, we're going to sort of put a Band-Aid on it. It's like, you can't keep covering it for too much longer, especially, being America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, man. You got to do something. You guys got to come out from this thing. And you figure they would come out ahead of this, but it's like, I started tagging them and challenging them. I'm actually going to reach out to them and see if I can get a hold of somebody and see if my contact on Friday, maybe she knows somebody over there, and just see, I think it'd be an interesting perspective to go over there and ask them, hey, listen, what are you guys doing in wake of this gentleman's unfortunate suicide? What are we doing more for these other players that we don't have to have this tragedy again, especially at 24? He's a young guy, man. That poor kid was struggling, and I don't know how many people didn't notice it. I wonder if anybody noticed it. That's my real question. Does anybody notice it? It's not to put anybody in blast. It's just to point out the fact that maybe somebody saw something and we didn't know what to do about it. That way we can end these problems and stop having these issues.
And perhaps, it got missed. Perhaps, though, and this can happen. They recognize something, they give them opportunities, they point them somewhere. They paid for it, just go it, and they don't follow through with it. And they avoid it, and I got no problem. What are you talking about? I'm good. This could happen. I mean, you get this in the addictive world within professional sports, and you get this in mental health, where they get there and they get some help, but they still struggle. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. Of course, we have the infamous draftee going back a few years that was bipolar and was certainly manic in terms of Demetrius Underwood. That was a well-known draft bust because of his mental health. More recently,
Remember Vince Young? Vince Young was another one too. The guy played from Texas or whatever. He was talking about wild things, and everybody just didn't think anything above it. I'm like, he's telling you these things. He's like thoughts that are just really out of the ordinary. He's talking wild, and y'all aren't doing anything about it. Like you need to go have him evaluated and make sure something's not wrong with the poor guy. And he's like, no, it's nothing. It's nothing. Thankfully, we didn't lose them. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they make these comments, and it's like people just like look at it and say, oh, they're just saying something wild. But is it really? Maybe it's a root cause of something that's going wrong that's been gone undiagnosed for him. Let's help this poor guy instead of let him struggle and just like, oh, it's just Vince. He's just acting, whatever. It's like, no, Vince is saying something to you.
Because people do have the capacity to choose or reject help, and you can't necessarily force them to get it.
No, I get that completely.
And professional teams can put some leverage on them. It certainly once, again, for the Vikings, when Everson Griffin had his mental health breakdown, they did that. They did. It was a question where he'd play again. He was able to recover and get back on track. So there's some level of it. Some of these gentlemen, may be the effects of brain injuries and the concussions and all that too with the CTE. Some of that, Junior Seau, the former tight end for Aaron Hernandez, so on and so forth. Now, there's more than CTE for Aaron Hernandez because he was he was already involved in gangs and stuff well before he made it to the NFL. But still, the brain injuries didn't help and changes things.
And then
there's a wide perspective out there of people. The best that any professional can do and any level can do is provide the opportunities and give a chance for recognition and set boundaries if you need to, especially with addiction, and not enable and encourage mental health. But I see it all the time, in the emergency room. People coming in, don't get there. And I got so many things I can't even talk about. I can't even talk about somebody that came in that was just really hard, this last Friday, in terms of trauma response and getting shifted into some extreme mental health. So But this is a gentleman, high performing, first responder kind of gentleman. He wouldn't seek help on his own or even refusing help when he was in the emergency room when he really needed it. So it's a matter of the balance within the stigma that exists with reaching people with our own natural tendency to be blind to what's going on and keep things back from those around us. And so, we can look back and go, well, there's a clue. And then it's easy for us to say, so why don't somebody do something about that? When there are attempts made. Some of these folks and these kids that are in the system that may have done a great bunch of harm, some of them have been in systems, have been trying to be helped. They're just making those choices, and all the help that was tried flattened. And when they see that people tried to help them and they're on mental health medications, it had to be the mental health medication that made them do that.
Exactly.
It's not the mental health medication that drives somebody to go around and kill people. Got news for you.
No, I agree.
They make within themselves. It's not even necessarily a mental health issue because most people with mental health issues do not do crap like that.
It's funny you say the services and trying to get help. I had a friend of mine, a close friend and a fellow podcaster. She had a situation with her friend. She was concerned. Her friend was saying some things and just got her really concerned. So she called services to come help, and the person's response was, "Oh, she's fine," because she was faking. She ain't gonna tell you she knew that was going on. She knew how to play the defensive game on it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though she had sat there and told her some very disturbing things the night before and things like that too, and it was like her biggest frustration is like, I'm calling all these places and nobody wants to help me, even though they're telling me call these places. They're saying call this person, call that person, and then she's getting bounced around a lot. And I feel like that's the issue for a lot of people. It's like it's crazy. It's like you say call for these help, and then when you do, then it's like you get offering no help. You're saying, I got to go call another number. It's like, yo, I got a situation here where somebody's talking and saying these things that are very disturbing that need to be addressed now, and you're sending me on a chase to go find what person I'm supposed to be calling. It's like, really? What the hell is going on here with that?
Right.
And to me,
that is the reality of the system, Pete. Because it's not necessarily easy access, and you don't know all of who does what. You know what the resources are in the community, and then just because you know the resources doesn't mean those resources will be available. So you say, hey, okay, this is where I know they deal with that. I can't promise you that they're going to be able to help you right away, or that they will help you. But this is the list of folks that say they help with the subject. People got their caseloads, people get booked up, all sorts of things happen. And any of the societies between anywhere that you're at, the world is not perfect in terms of dealing with mental health and giving the best resources, because it all comes down to what gets paid for. Right. And even government here in Minnesota, when back in the 90s they shut down the institutionalized settings, they didn't really. They were going to do some research and say, what can we produce instead? But the powers that be, all the legislatures and senators within the state of Minnesota, I can't do anything with that because if I do that, my constituents are going to run me out on the rails because they don't want any money going to anything. They don't want the tax money going there. So nothing got built up in the middle. We got some extremes. We got some holes here and there. And Minnesota is one of the better states for mental health, mind you.
Yeah.
And even the mental health process when somebody's in crisis, it's not necessarily absolutely helpful because the goal is to shorten the time that they're at their worst to they're being somewhat stable again. Inpatient hospitalization just is all about get it down from the acute crisis down to just normal, in terms of living their life. And maybe point you to help, but the discharge planning from inpatient units is not always well done. And so sometimes they're out there and they're still in the same situation and they didn't really find some help. So it's not a free-flowing, easy, just get the help, you're going to get it kind of bit. You got to work at it. And anybody that's seeking help, they've got to do the work. Somebody shows up to a therapist and says, okay, fix me. Now, you're going to fix me, right? Can't do it because it's what we do with what we got. It's how we process and act on what we've been given. And there was a counselor that I worked with in terms of treatment center who had been doing CD counseling for years, decades. He told me, there was one client he had that he had the big book memorized. Could quote it backwards and forwards, knew everything on every page, knew it absolutely inside and out. He died of alcohol use in a hotel room. He knew it all. He didn't live it. It comes down to living it and doing it and being able to do the work.
I think that's a good point, though. I think you got to put the work in. It's the part, though.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people I've met, what was his name? Kevin McNulty. He's a coach,
Okay.
and he was telling me he runs a podcast, Grow Yourself, and him and I were talking about just that. He was like, I had this client, and he's like, for some reason, he said, at first I couldn't figure out what her deal was. She was all excited, I got her excited, and then she didn't put the work in, because that's the hardest part, is putting the work in. Now, mind you, everybody listening, this is the hardest part. Like, you have to put the work in. If you don't, it's not going to do good. Tim could give you advice all day, but if you're not going to do your part in this conversation, it's just not going to work. It's not fun. I'll tell you, Forrest, it's not fun. Listen, I've been reflecting on my own shit. Let me tell you. Was not a fun experience when I had to have people tell me how of a terrible person I was before, but I had to deal with that. I had to swallow it because it's just who I was, And my friend V said, I don't think it's you're a terrible person. I forgot how she worded it a lot differently than what I would have said, but I'm just like, it's just what it was. I was not a pleasant person to be around. Like, all these things that had happened to me, I want to blame everybody else, but it's really, at the end of the day, it was Pete was the problem. Pete was not a good person to be around at the time, and I'll be the first one to admit it,
Right, and my guess is Pete, and some of that not a good man to be around, given unknown trauma that you had. There was this underlying anger that was there all the damn time, and somebody look at you the wrong way, and where'd their head go? Oh, I ate it.
Yeah, see, here we go. See, this is what he does. This is what Dr. Tim does.
What was that about? I just took their head off. I don't know why. I was doing good before they looked at me that way.
Right, yeah. See, this is exactly what me and Dr. Tim's first conversation when, like, he gets it. Like people like Tim get it. Like, there's people out there, you just have to find your Tim there that can figure out what it is. And especially with therapy, it's like, maybe talk therapy isn't for you. That's the great thing with the show, is that there's so many different things people are doing these days. Like, there's people doing great things with psychedelics these days that are helping with certain conditions and things like that, too. I've been meeting along the way. There's somebody in Minnesota, actually, with you guys. I can't remember what his name is now. Christian, he has a clinic out there, though, but he microdoses. But
right.
He doesn't just...
There is, because a coworker actually took CE training just to understand a little bit of how those are utilized, and it's pretty intensive protocol and some pretty intensive stuff. And the guy that was teaching it knows the ins and outs. So, I'm not to say that there's no end all to be all, but you always got to be careful with the brain.
Exactly.
And even
that,
you gotta know things, because when you're messing with the brain, you can trigger things. That's part of the thing. It's a big deal throughout the world. Cannabis and medical cannabis and use cannabis for anxiety, pain, this, that, the other. Don't even understand how the endocannabinoid system works and what THC is doing to the brain and to the body. With that effect. And just to keep it simplified.
I agree.
The THC stores in your fat cells. The endocannabinoid system, it puts out chemicals that, are the ones that put locks, you can say put locks on the doors that receive the information. And so rather than being open for the communication chemicals to go in, it closes them off doors. Now, this is random. It's not any particular pattern, although some strains have different patterns that are predictable. It randomly shuts off doors, so there's more brain chemicals floating around in the brain because they don't got that same door to go through. So it creates a chemical soup, if you will, and the more extreme and intense the THC exposure is, the more chemical soup you got going on. And of course, if you're using the synthetics, which don't ever do it, if you use the synthetics, though, it's like taking a fire hose to your brain and it's randomly shutting all sorts of doors, and you get all sorts of chemicals, and that's why you get psychosis, you get seizures, you get the flat out not moving zombie look that occurs with synthetic THC.
It's a lot of times people are like, they want to take it away, but then they don't give that great of an answer, though. It's like, why? Like, if they would have just given us the facts of like what they feel about it, just like you just presented, all those facts are the reasons why you shouldn't be doing it, and what we don't really understand is the after effects. You hear about a lot of drugs, though.
Where I learned most about that neuro and psych stuff on that, actually, drug websites explaining it. It wasn't in my doctoral program. The neuropsych barely even referenced. I had to find out about it on NOED and various other chemical dependency sites that actually broke down the science of the endocannabinoid system as we understand it, because I actually wanted to know. And so it wasn't through the science sites that I found it out about that stuff. It's about addiction promoting or examining NOED, where you can find out anything about everything drug-wise.
That's it's out there. That's the point. The information's out there. People want to know the answers, just find it. That's the great thing about the internet. Hell, you got ChatGPT and all that other stuff that they're trying to use as their therapist these days. I'm like, can you please stop doing that? That's not a good idea.
No, that's just
It's that
Yeah,
sheep-like
positively
mentality of social
reinforced.
media.
Yeah, they got what the kind of conversation are. It's ChatGPT. If you're going for a non-directive therapist, i.e., Rogers, yeah,
Hmm.
it'd be no different because all it's doing is doing the reflective feedback. Where you're just repeating what was said and leaving open for you to process yourself. That's what
Yeah.
Rogers did. Non-directive therapy does. Yeah, I got morphed into motivational interviewing, which is a lot of the same, trying to get you to find your reasons for embracing change. Oh yeah, ChatGPT, Rock, Gemini,
Yeah.
Perplexity, all that. They can do a real good job of being non-directive. They might even give some directives, and here it is. On the plus side, if you want a quick rundown of skills and you say, well, how do I deal with this particular thing, you can find the already identified skill sets to be able to use it without going to therapists. So there are tools. It's not just, oh no, they're doing therapy with AI. Well, if they could help by finding the skills and learning some things,
Yeah.
that's better than if they didn't.
Yeah. No, I see that completely, and then because it's what is it? TikTok seems to be the big instigator of these fun little trends that people go on. Oh well, I want to be a part of this trend, the ice bucket challenge, and all those other goofy things for people doing. Like these meaningless ones that were like okay, they're all fun, and then we got to go to well, ChatGPT is my new therapist. Oh God, please stop saying those words. As soon as I heard people saying that, I'm like, can you please stop? Like, there's so many licensed people out there that can help you. I have a whole list of people you can go talk to that aren't named ChatGPT that are probably a better suited person for your situation. For the love of God, the one, the only, Lisa Sugarman has a whole website. The helphub.co. I met her recently too. She's got a whole website. She can go down, breaks it down to even your religion, whatever your religious beliefs are. She has people that fit in that category. She spent all this time for you, so you don't have to use ChatGPT to try and help yourself. Like, for love of God, please stop. It's scaring me.
Right.
Because with the internet, though, you think about it, like, all these people post these videos about, oh, look out for the warning signs, and this just pissed me off. The one that really irritates me is, like, these ones where they start listing the reasons why, you shouldn't commit suicide. So, okay, this is going to be a controversial opinion on this, but to me, I've been in that state of mind. I'm not listening to anything else that's being said at this point, when these, you know what I mean? Like, I appreciate them joining the conversation. I see what you're trying to do, trying to list all the benefits, but once you're in that state of mind, you're not listening to anybody else around you. You don't care. And then all those, oh, I should have seen the signs. And this, it's like, sometimes you couldn't help that person. You don't know what their thought process is. That's why there's these licensed professionals like Dr. Tim and everybody else that are here to handle these things. It's a great one to get you started, but you go talk to somebody who knows what you're talking about.
And the reality is, Pete, some of these folks that are posting these things on various social media really don't care. It's all about, am I getting pops? Am I getting?
There you go. See, you beat me to it. Yep, you know exactly where I'm going with this one because it just drives me nuts.
And there's things out there that are shortcuts. One of the things you find on TikTok, you post enough, is these ASMR videos where they make the noise and it stimulates the brain in a certain way and it helps with some programming or whatever. It's some manipulative stuff,
Yeah.
kind of thing, which is just based on our response to auditory cues. But it's so but people looking for a shortcut. And it's like, oh, I just watch these ASMR videos and then I'm going to be at peace. No, you won't. But you're going to feel like it. I mean, it's out there in the culture so much so it made Mike White included in his first episode of White Lotus, where it referenced that whole particular bit and kind of made it kind of seem silly.
That's why I'm worried about the internet, though. It's like the younger kids that are seeing this stuff. It's like, what are we telling them in these messages of these videos? And then the fact we sexualize these women in these ways, that we're giving false narrative that this is the way you should look for people to accept you and all these other things and all these nasty comments that get said. There was the one that really triggered me recently that was just like this girl was talking about her husband committed suicide, okay? So she goes to the internet, mind you, and starts like posting the most disgusting video I've ever seen in my life because she's talking about like, well, it's not my fault he did it. You're right, it's not your fault. Okay, cool. We're disagreeing to that one, ma'am. Got you. It's not your fault what he chose to do. Yes, I got you. But the fact that you just went here and you're acting like so cold-heartedly about it, and you're talking about how it's disgusting this man had feelings and he was depressed and all these things, and you're just putting him on blast for no reason. Right. Like, that just makes no sense. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
It makes no sense, but let me explain that kind of thing for you. So people have got their grief and dealing with the hard things. So we got... Wisely, you can put anything out there anytime, and we're doing it oftentimes out of ourselves to be able to try and deal with our stuff.
Yeah.
So a woman like that, it's like, I'm overwhelmed, I got this, and just trying to process, because you probably had nobody else She probably had no support system. Probably
That's
nobody
true.
to sit
That's
down and
true.
vent with. And it wasn't going to go to the therapist about that. So, hey, let me vent to my global therapist in the world and get whatever is out there. This is the world we live in, Pete.
I
I want
know
to
it's
talk about
scary,
something, I want to put it
man.
out there. I can put it out there, and I'm going to find somebody who's going to say something about it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just be entertained by the drama. There are people out there. There, in terms of YouTube, whatever. There was this like Canadian food beauty or whatever it was that people would just watch her, borderline personality disorder to the T. They watch her just to see she was going to do that was not making sense, and then a host of folks criticizing her.
See,
Just
that's
a
my
thing.
biggest
I only
fear
know
right
that because my
there.
wife watched that for a while. She got obsessed with watching the criticisms of this woman. It just she finally let that go. But it's just there are these things that people watch it just to entertain themselves.
You
It's
see,
like
listen,
if it was
that's
a
funny
TV
you say
drama.
that. So I have a friend and a fellow podcaster. She interviewed somebody with DID. Okay, so in this conversation, I watched part of it. She gets up from the interview to go get something, and comes back. So my this is where the part that started to get me a little concerned is that people watching this have no idea what DID is.
Right.
People have probably not even the slightest extent to know what it is. I'm watching this person talk to the other voices that are there, that those other personalities that exist, and you could tell, like, you at first you're wondering who they're talking to, and I figured it out really fast, and I'm like, my only thoughts in this were like, listen, this interview should not have been done live. This kind of thing
Yeah.
should not have been live, just because
Right.
of the reason of the fact that people don't know what it is, and then they'll start criticizing, like we always do. Have to talk with it, and I was like, I wasn't mad at my friend for doing it, but I haven't even talked to her, but I honestly do. But I'm like, you need to understand when we deal with these certain conditions that some of these need to be in a closed
Right.
setting because people don't understand what they're looking at.
So things like that, it's a learning experience. So you got people around to give feedback, and hey, well, that may have had some drama. Just can you? It might be wise to find a way to screen, that, what have you.
I'm gonna be real. Just talk to her and just say, listen, these are my concerns when watching this, just based on the conversation I've had with people. I had a woman that actually interviewed 100 people at DID, and we had a great conversation. She's a #1 Amazon bestseller for her book. And it's like when she was talking to me, she was telling me that these guys want to be heard, but they don't want to fix the voices because that's their defense system. I was like, okay, I get that respectfully. That's awesome. I get it. That's cool. The fact that they literally were talking to you about this was
Be
interesting.
aware, and maybe you're the person who's talked to hundreds of them, and I've certainly not done that. You always got to be aware that because you've got so many different stories and realities going on, you have no idea what is foundational truth and what is confabulated. You got no clue.
Very
Yes.
true.
So you can find all sorts of things.
Well,
And even in reality, sometimes with us, our trauma, sometimes it gets distorted and confused and other things. And the reality is, for each of us individual, if you got things you're going through, it's not so much a matter of if your memory doesn't follow suit with those around your family. Okay, this is what you held to be as true. And maybe in hearing somebody that saw it differently might help change how you view what happened.
Yeah.
But we can form and confabulate our own ideas of what had happened. And I'll give you a story about confabulation on that. Growing up as a kid, we had pet rabbits, and my mother and was looking for ways to cut costs. So, okay, well, we maybe if we bred rabbits, we can eat rabbits and feed it. So one day they get a rabbit from the butcher, cook it up, try to pass it off like chicken. Of course, we knew it wasn't chicken. And then mom said, we realized a rabbit. Yeah, that was your pet rabbit. She was joking because it was a rabbit from a butcher. But my brother to this day still believes, and has gotten arguments with my dad over they killed our pet rabbit and gave it to us for dinner. He believes that that's what the case was. His memory in his brain. And he's got a very detailed memory of all sorts of details. Anything that we can have happen can be distorted by our views and what happens and the meaning we put on the memory.
Yeah, see, that's the main reason why I stopped doing live interviews, just because the content of these conversations were getting even more intense. And I'm like, when you get to certain people's conversations, sexual assault was one of them, or somebody tried to accuse me of saying that I was being weird. I'm like, no, I'm being an interviewer. I'm asking you questions about something. And now, but mind you, before I start with these conversations, I let people know. I'm like, listen, if there is something you don't want to discuss, you let me know. We'll turn away from it instantly. There's not even a question. I won't even think twice. Nothing. So when I do these privately, I do tell people the same thing. Like, there's something in this interview that you don't like, it's cut instantly. There's no debate about it. There's no argument. It's gone. But, because this is your story, and what you want to tell is what you want to tell. Like, if there's some things that you don't want to discuss, or you feel like something didn't sit right with you. I met a woman, though, when I was doing the suicide awareness video panels. I did a couple videos of them. This one woman had told me she had to tell her kids that were 10 and 7 that their dad had took their life. But the way she did it was very creative, and for example, that conversation, something got said in there that she didn't agree with, and she felt like it may come off the wrong way. And I appreciate her just coming, because she was worried to tell me. I'm like, you ain't got to worry about anything. I'm not even going to question it. If you don't like it being there, I agree with you. It shouldn't be there, And especially in this space here, that's why I went to these closed sessions, because, like, I feel like it's a lot better when dealing with certain disease subjects and things like that, because people tend to judge and people say nasty things, I like to reference all the time. Bert Kreischer, the comedian, always says that he could look at 1,000 good positive comments. He's always looking straight at that negative one every single time, and that always messes with him. A guy that tells jokes all day, takes his shirt off on stage, all these things this man has done, tells you the wildest stories about him getting mixed up in the Russian mob. That's his biggest focus, is that one negative comment there. You know what I mean? And it's like,
right.
That's
so it's coming through a shame filter, and whatever's going on, I ain't getting involved with the mob, whatever, and he may have done a whole bunch of nasty stuff.
He had some wild shit going on.
A negative comment can send him on a negative spiral fast. So
yeah. So, well, Dr. Tim, as we get ready to start wrapping up this episode, first I want to thank you so much for coming back and talking to me. I'm so excited to hear about the podcast. Everybody listening, we will definitely make sure when he gets it going, we're going to get a link to it and put it inside the description of this video, this audio, however you're listening to this podcast episode for the day. I did want to ask you a question. It's something new I adopted along the way, and I bet a few people along the way. So my question to you is that if you could break the stigma about mental health. Now, I'm sure you hear some things every single day, and something that you just want people to stop believing. What would you say that thing that shows up most common?
What shows up most common is that individual, rejection. I'm not crazy. I don't have mental health. I'm good. I'm fine. I don't have any problems. I'm normal. That's where it is. I want to fit along with everybody else. Even we talk about with the world at large and why things go out there, because we don't engage in thought. We don't engage in critical thinking. We don't get taught these things. So kids getting all this, and they don't get spun one way to another and go to whatever feels good in the moment without being able to learn how to manage things. A lot of what comes to growth in mental health is actually learning the skills and dealing with your pain. So learning how to manage your emotions, manage to learn how to manage stress, manage to learn how to engage in effective relating and managing how to make wise choices leads to a better change.
Right.
You keep doing what you've always done, well, you get that bloody head.
You got to break that pattern, yeah.
Concussions that you repeat over and over again.
Exactly.
Because we automate things, so we keep doing the same old thing.
Exactly.
But that's more content, and we're wrapping it up.
Right. Well, Dr. Tim, thank you so much for being here again, man.
Right.
It was great meeting you. I'm glad that you came back and caught up with us.
Right.
We look forward to the podcast coming out. Did you want to plug your website for everybody to go check out your current stuff?
So I already mentioned at the beginning, the Living Life Mindset on Faith Points Radio at wfpr.online/links. And that's, it plays Christian music a lot of the other time. It's got no printed schedule. Wednesdays and Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern. I've got my 29 minutes of teaching on a psycho-spiritual, life mindset related context. I've just been going through Advent stuff here. Talked about, this week's, this Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday will be about joy.
Awesome.
Next week will be Christmas week. It'll be about love, and then all of 2026, the radio gig will be marching forth the various aspects of taking steps forward. So there's that link. On my website, of course, lifemindset.life gets the whole page. But if you want to just begin and want to get the basics of life mindset, you can go to primer.lifemindset.life and sign up, and then you'll get 40 pages worth of initial explanation of what I'm talking about when I talk about life mindset, that you heard a brief snippet here today. So those are things, and then everything is going to progress from there with actual opportunities to engage, even just at a simple passive membership level where you get skills, you get information, you get teaching, all that stuff. Some free, some for a little bit, some for a bit more, and all that jazz.
It sounds like you got a plan there, and we were excited to hear it come out. And like I said, as soon as it gets out, guys, I'll definitely be sharing it on my socials for y'all, where to go check out everything with Dr. Tim and everything else. So, Dr. Tim, thank you again so much for being here, man. It was great seeing you again. I had a great time as usual. This conversation was always great. And hey, listen, maybe you'll come back for a third time when you get the podcast going. We can talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully, so you're booking out about 4 months ahead, right?
Listen, we'll make special place for you. Don't worry. As soon as that podcast drops, we'll figure out.
We'll talk to you. But what I'm saying is, because generally in the summer, I've got the short break where I'm in Brazil with the wife's family, where I don't have to worry about taking time off of anything to book the interview.
I got you.
Of course, we're not doing it live now because before you talk about it, well, you got to do this time because we're doing it all live. We've shifted to doing it live.
Yeah, now
Well,
we
that
have
went
more
by-
flexibility for sure.
Right. So, and certainly open to elements as we progress. So, we'll definitely be in touch
Oh, fine.
on Facebook, whatever. And again, for the folks, Pete's going to have those links up for what's there now. That'll lead you to anything that comes as well.
Definitely. And we look forward to you coming back. And with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. And as always say, it costs nothing absolutely to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save their life. Or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?